Thank you so much for inviting me to this seminar. And my name is Jiangong Liu, and I'm a postdoc working at Columbia University. Now I'm working with peer agenting. So most of the projects are about machine learning and to use them to upscale carbon to the global and to understand the model we built. And so today I would like to share our the work we have done during my PhD program. So yeah, they mainly about methane emissions from mangroves and also from fish ponds. So first of all, I have to acknowledge my PhD supervisor, Derek Lai, for his great mentorship, and also many thanks to Dennis Spadoki and his lab from UC Berkeley, who gave me great help and support during these studies, and also many thanks to the funding agencies to make all this happen. So first of all, it's a bit about the background of mangroves and the fish ponds. So for mangrove trees, they are growing along the coastal lines. So yeah, from the picture on the left, we can see this is an experimental site at Florida. And for most of the time, we can find mangrove trees in the tropical and the subtropical regions. This is a picture showing our study site. So this is a tidal creek, and we have to use this floating bridge to access our tower. And on both sides of the floating bridge, we can see this mangrove trees, and they are largely influenced by the tidal activities. For example, we can see there's some marks on the trees, which means the tidal height can be at this point sometimes, and also sometimes they can be quite low, so the bottom soil can be exposed to the air. For the blue carbon ecosystems, we call the carbon stored in these coastal wetlands as blue carbon, and there are major three coastal wetlands. We call them blue carbon ecosystems, which are mangroves, salt marshes, and seagrass meadows. And the reason why people are increasingly interested in blue carbon ecosystems, and one of the main reasons is that they have a really high carbon sequestration rate. So for example, for mangroves, they can do photosynthesis at a very high rate, which means they uptake carbon at a high rate, and also they can do this photosynthesis for year round. And also also because for those coastal wetlands, they are always inundated for a long time, and so under these anaerobic conditions, the carbon loss rate is quite low, so the carbon can be secured in the soil or biomass for a long time. So this makes the mangroves, together with other coastal wetlands, as the most carbon-rich ecosystems. For example, for the carbon barrier rate for blue carbon ecosystems, they are around like 40 times higher than terrestrial forest. And for the carbon storage in mangroves, it can be 3 times higher than terrestrial forest. And for most of carbon, they are stored in the deep soil layer. So if we took soil samples from mangroves, we can see like at the bottom or at the deep soil layers, basically the color is very dark, which means the carbon density is quite high. So besides carbon sequestration, and for mangroves, they can also provide a series of other ecosystem services. For example, for the local fisheries, or to provide timber and to purify water, and also to protect the coastal line. This is a video I really like. It shows like how mangroves can act as a buffer for the huge waves. So basically, for these mangroves, they can observe the energy containing in this huge waves coming towards the land. And so behind these mangroves, basically the sea surface is quite stable. But however, like for global mangroves, they are facing some critical challenges. For example, for climate change, for sea level rise, and also from the pressure from human beings. From a rough estimate, we already lost like half of mangroves worldwide since 1940, and from different literatures using different methods gives different annual deforestation rate of mangroves. Basically, they range 0.16 to 2, yeah, which means every year we lost this amount of mangrove. And so if the mangroves are clear cut, then the rest part on the ground or the roots or the carbon stored in the soil, sooner or later they will be oxidized to CO2, and this CO2 will be entered to the atmosphere. So if we quantify this kind of immediate carbon loss from the mangroves deforestation, there could be quite a large amount over the past 2 decades. And especially the Southeast Asia is the hot spot for this carbon emission during the land use change and the land cover change. And for the major threat in Southeast Asia to mangrove trees, so the conversion to aquaculture point is the major threat, and followed by the other agricultural lands. So on the picture on the right, it shows like how a part of the mangroves are clear cut and transferred and converted to aquaculture points. Yeah, we can clearly see them from the space. Good news is that the deforestation rate for mangroves, for mangrove deforestation has slowed down a lot, especially in the Asia and South America. Yeah, we can see from this picture for the red and the blue lines. And many other papers and sources also confirm this, because like people begin to realize that they are quite important ecosystems. Here's a bit background about wetlands and methane emissions. So first of all, this picture showing the atmospheric methane levels. So during the past decades, like there's kind of a plateau for the methane concentration in the atmosphere. Then it begins to increase up to 2007. We're still not very clear about why both this trend, why it becomes flat at this period and then it really increased again. And isotopic signature suggests that this can be caused by the biological origin of methane. So which means the natural wetlands, for example, they are the single largest natural sources of methane that can be produced by biological activities. And also there are some activities find that the methane leak from the pipelines, which I think Paul is looking at them. Yeah, they also contribute to this increase in methane. This picture showing the global methane budget. So these different arrows pointing up or down, showing the sources and the sinks of methane, and these different figures shows the estimate of these strengths using different method like top down or bottom up method. And this is the methane emissions from wetlands. So yeah, basically this the strength of this source can represent like 1/3 of the source of methane. So it's quite important to understand the methane dynamics in wetlands. So if we generally classify wetlands into freshwater wetlands and coastal wetlands, and from this global census, we can see that freshwater wetlands can emit much higher methane than coastal wetlands. But the thing is that, like, for most of these sampling points, they are inland wetlands, and very few are from coastal wetlands. So still, we don't have really a full picture of this. Yeah, here's a diagram of the mangrove methane emission, and why, like, for coastal wetlands, the methane emission can be a minor part. So there's a bunch of microbes called methanogens. They can make use of the organic matters in the soils to produce methane. This process is called methanogenesis, and this produced methane can be laterally transported to the adjacent system. And for this process, we really poorly quantify the how much methane is lost through this way. And the rest of methane, they can consumed by a process called methanotrophy. And yeah, the rest of methane, yeah, they can be emitted to the atmosphere through diffusion or through the bubbles. And for coastal wetlands, there's a unique feature that the water is quite saline. So the salinity could be high in the water. And there's another bunch of microbes called sulfate-reducing bacteria. So they share the common substrate with methanogens. So which means these two microbes, they will compete the substrate, and the sulfate-reducing bacteria can always win. So in this case, that's why the coastal wetlands, they can be quite minor methane emitters. There are other features for the coastal wetlands. For example, it's frequently subject to tidal activities. And for example, for our site, for each day, there will be 2 peaks in terms of tidal heights. And also every 14 days, there will be a spring and neap tide tidal cycles. Yeah, there are the other features, for example, for the salinity in the tidal water and dissolved oxygen. So both of them, they show a clear seasonal pattern. So from that a relatively complicated figure, so we can see if we want to fully understand the methane dynamics in coastal wetlands, we better consider several dimensions into our study. For example, for the time scale we want to study, yeah, because for both methane and its drivers, they show different variability at different time scales. And also, yeah, because and methane and its drivers, most of time the relationship can be nonlinear. And from our observed environmental factors to methane production to methane consumption, and to finally we detected methane in the atmosphere. So yeah, there can be a time lag between them. So we also need to think about the asynchrony. So finally, there are some confounding facts in this picture because, for example, there are so many biological and physical factors. They are linearly correlated. So in this case, we're not sure whether our statistical models, they are right or not. So yeah, it will be good to have a look at the causality. We haven't done much work regarding the causality. So in this talk, I will mainly focus on the first 3. So here's a diagram for Fishpond for commercial Fishpond. So for the water bodies for these Fishponds, normally they are quite nutrient rich, so they receive the feed from fishmen and fertilizer, and also the excreta from the fish. And yeah, this can provide the substrate for the methane production. And also for the bottom soil, for a fish pond, it can be prolonged inundated to create strictly anaerobic condition, which also facilitate the methane production. And yeah, indeed, there are a bunch of papers confirm that the aqua ponds can be a hotspot for methane production or an emission. For example, in this global meta-analysis, the authors, they show that the conversion of natural coastal wetlands to aqua ponds can increase the methane emission by over 200%. And this is an experiment conducted in Southeast China. And yeah, they also find that the methane emissions from shrimp ponds are higher than from brackish marshes. So in this study, we yeah, we want to like quantify the annual methane flux at the coastal wetland, at mangrove, and also from freshwater fish ponds. And also we want to understand the variability in methane fluxes at different timescales, and finding the dominant drivers of methane fluxes. And at the last, we want to like explore if converting fish ponds to mangroves can be a potential natural-based climate solution. So which means, yeah, because fish ponds can be a hotspot for greenhouse gas emissions, and for mangroves, normally they have a high carbon sequestration rate. So yeah, through this conversion, maybe we can achieve some climate benefit. So the main strategy we used are based on eddy currents technique. For eddy currents technology, so it computes a flux using the fluctuations in vertical wind and also in the mixing ratio of the scalar that we are interested in. Like for example, for CO2 or methane. So for the equation, this bar means that we take the average of this scalar. So for eddy currents system, at least each should consist of sonic anemometer and also a gas analyzer. And in our case, we have two gas analyzers, which can quantify the mixing ratios of CO2, water, and also methane. Also for standard eddy currents tower, it also consists of different sensors to monitor the conditions in the air and in the soil. For example, for light, air temperature, the humidity in the air, and also soil moisture and the temperature. Because we are interested in wetlands, so we also measured water conditions in the tidal creek I showed at the beginning of the talk. And this is the location of our tower, and we measured water quality not far from the tower in a tidal creek. So the factors we measured contains water temperature and the water table depth, and this salinity, which is computed from temperature and water conductivity. Here I will show some major advantages of eddy currents measurements over the traditional chamber measurements. For example, in this study, the authors find that for the methane emission, they can offset around 20% of the blue carbon barrier. And the conclusion is based on a collection of chamber measurements from the literature. And yeah, there are mainly two types of chambers, and one is put on the soil surface, another put on the water surface. And for this chamber measurements, basically the researchers, we will take the headspace, the gas to the lab and measure the concentration of the scalar we are interested in, and collect several samples during a specific time period, and then we will get gradients among these samples. Oh yeah, and we don't really have a good data set for the inundation condition for global mangroves. So the authors, they assume like half time the soil surface will be exposed to the air, half of time it will be inundated. And another issue for this chamber measurements is that it has a poor representativeness on salinity. For example, for many sites, they will only report the methane emissions during the summertime, and in the wintertime, normally we can assume that it could be a much lower methane will be emitted during the wintertime. And there are some missing sources from this picture. For example, for recently people began to realize that fish dams can also emit methane. And the plant leaves actually can also emit methane through a biochemical process, and when the plants are under stressful conditions. So yeah, if we don't have like all of this picture, they will like bears the estimate we made. So for the good thing for eddy covariance tower is that it can monitor the whole ecosystem. And for the direct exchange of this gas and energy between the atmosphere and the biosphere, and it has a reasonable coverage on space and time, and especially for time. So because normally the gas analyzer and anemometer can work at a frequency of 10 or 20. So this provide us very valuable information for the dynamics of these ecosystems. And we already have a global network of the eddy covariance sites, and the database is called FluxNet Methane, covering different wetland types. So here comes our study site. This is a picture about a map about where our sites are. This is our mangrove site and the Fishpond sites. They're not very far from each other, and basically they share quite similar meteorological conditions. And for the mangrove site, it's located at the Maipo Nature Reserve. The code is Hong Kong MPM. So yeah, if you search this code in the global database FluxNet Methane, then you can find the data of this site. So for the site, it has a subtropical monsoon climate, and for the salinity of this site, it can drop a lot. It can drop a lot during the summertime because it will receive the abundant freshwater discharge from the mainland China, and during the wintertime, the salinity is normally quite high. The picture on the left shows how the tower looks like. So all the eddy covariance instruments, they are mounted at the top of the tower at a height of around 10 meters. And for the major trees at this site is called Condolia obwater, which is a major, a typical Asian mangrove species. And the dwarf mangrove on the ground is called Acanthus illifolius. This is a picture showing the view from the top of the site. Because for eddy covariance technique, it favors like flat canopy. So this site, it could be a quite ideal condition for eddy covariance measurements. Here shows the environmental conditions for the site. So during the summertime, we have quite high air temperature and rainfall, but the salinity and the dissolved oxygen can drop a lot during the summertime. Yeah, this is the time series for methane fluxes from the mangrove side. Yeah, basically during the summertime, it can reach the maximum, and during the wintertime, because of the high salinity and the low temperature, it can be quite close to zero. And also because of the this top figure shows the original half-hourly methane flux time series. Yeah, because it's quite noisy if we just see them. So we use the technology called singular spectrum analysis to decompose this time series into different subsignals. So yeah, basically we decompose the original time series into different multiple subsignals, and we reconstruct the subsignals with specific frequencies that we're interested in together to a new subsignal like that. So we are interested in 3 time scales, which are diurnal, multi-day, and seasonal. For the diurnal, so it represents the day and night cycle in light, temperature, and also the tidal heights. And for the multi-day time scale, for this tidal ecosystem, so it can be particularly interesting to see the spring and neap tidal cycles and how this can influence the methane dynamics. And for the seasonality, so it represents the annual movements of the sun and the plant physiology. Yeah, so for this figure, it shows the diurnal signal of the methane time series aggregated on different times of the day, and this shows the multi-day variation in methane aggregated on the days of biweekly cycle, and this is the seasonal variations in methane. So we find that the largest variability happened at the diurnal timescale, followed by seasonal and multi-day timescales. So this means that if we want to really understand why the methane signals is quite noisy or variable, then we better have a good understanding about them at the diurnal timescale. So because this can account for a large proportion of the variation in the time scale. So considering the annual methane flux, it can reach around 11.7 gram carbon per square meter per year. So if we convert this value to CO2 equivalents flux using the global warming potential over 20 years, we will find that methane emissions can reduce the radiative cooling effect caused by the photosynthesis effect by half. So which means, yeah, we cannot just ignore the methane emissions from coastal wetlands. And if we put this value into a global picture, compare with other sites in the FluxNet methane, then it's located here. It's not very high, and also it's not that low. So then we used a metric called mutual information. So it is based on the Shannon entropy. So it is calculated using the P is the marginal probability distribution of a variable, and PSY is the joint probability distribution between two variables, and the Y is always the methane fluxes, and X is its drivers. So mutual information quantifies the information shared between two variables, and basically it's a measure of the uncertainty. So if the mutual information is high, it means the reduction in uncertainty is high. And one unique advantage of this mutual information is that it can give us a estimate of the temporal direction of two variables of the process. Yeah, we find it could be quite beneficial to our analysis because our traditional statistics they don't always like perform good on this. But for mutual information, this information is quite unique for our analysis. So here shows the dominant drivers of methane at different timescales. For these black bars, they represent the mutual information at the 0 time lag, and the colored extensions means the maximum mutual information at a time lag. And these results are generated from the similar spectrum analysis. So it's just the subsignals reconstructed from the methane and its biophysical drivers. And at the del timescale, so plant activities, they are the dominant driver for the variability in methane. And the processes are always synchronous. And at the multi-day and seasonal timescales, some physical factors like the atmospheric turbulence and temperature, soil temperature at the deep layer, and also the salinity, they can dominantly drive the methane, the variability in methane fluxes through the asynchronous processes. And we compared our results with the global synthesis from the freshwater wetlands, and we found that at the diurnal time scales, the results are quite similar. That we are both sure that the plants' activities they play a major role at this time scale, controlling methane dynamics through synchronous processes. But at the multi-day time scale and the seasonal time scale, the major difference lies on the role of water table depths. And for the mangrove wetlands, for all the time scales, so for the water table depths, it plays a minor role for controlling methane emissions. But for freshwater wetlands, water table depths, it can be quite important for this long-term variations in methane fluxes. So here comes the our study about the Fishpond. This is our study site called Tai Song Wei in Hong Kong. This is a view of the site from a drone. And the major fish species the fishermen raise at this point are called cornichon fish. And this is shows the temporal variability in methane fluxes. So basically during the summertime, it can reach quite a very high value of methane fluxes. But during the wintertime, because the fishermen, they will join the fish ponds, and in this case, to harvest the fishes. So in this case, the bottom soil will be exposed to the air, and the drainage can last for long term to let the toxic matter accumulated in the bottom to be oxidized. And also, the government encouraged the fishermen to leave some food for the migrant birds. So in this case, the fish ponds can also support the local biodiversity. So in this case, we find some negative methane fluxes during the winter time. So if we put the annual methane flux in this figure, so actually it's located here. It's around 110 gram carbon per square meter per year. So it is exceptionally higher than other freshwater wetlands. And we used machine learning methods to build a model between methane fluxes and its environmental drivers. So this model is called stream gradient boosting. And we can also use the local explainer, which is called Shapley value, to explain why the model performed like this. And in this case, we find that for the dominant driver of methane is the air temperature. And basically for methane, it has methane fluxes, it has a basically linear relationship with air temperature. So we put both the CO2 fluxes and methane fluxes, and we convert methane fluxes to its CO2 equivalents, and we put them in this figure. And it shows that for this blue line, sometimes if mangrove is converted to other land use or land covers, then yeah, we call the loss of this opportunity for carbon sequestration as the foregone carbon sequestration. And so in this study, we suggest that the subsequent ecosystem can be a hotspot for the greenhouse gas emissions, whose strengths can be much higher than this foregone carbon sequestration. For example, for our fishponds, so it's really a hotspot for methane emissions. So nature-based climate solutions are quite hot topics recently. It's mainly because we know if we want to mitigate climate change, we need to reduce the fossil fuel burning immediately. But we really saw slow progress on this. And in this case, if we still want to control the air temperature, the temperature increase under 1.5 degrees C, then we need to do some complementary work, except for reduction in fossil fuel burning. Then nature-based climate solutions can be a way to do this, and also it can bring a lot of other co-benefits. And for coastal wetlands restoration, it provides some potential in enhancing the carbon sequestration. So still the bottom line is still to reduce the fossil fuel burning immediately. This is just a complementary way to achieve the carbon zero and to zero carbon and to remove the CO2 from the atmosphere. And in a recent white paper led by Kim Nowick, and there are several criteria proposed by the authors. And through these studies, we already have a bunch of ground-based observations for the carbon uptake and or non-CO2 greenhouse gas emissions from both mangroves or from other blue carbon ecosystems, and also from the aqua points. So yeah, with more and more data, we get better understanding for criteria 1 to quantify the levels of this greenhouse gas. But still, we need extra work to better understanding like the cooling effect of this transition. For example, for forests, normally they are darker than points, so they can receive more light from more. They can capture more light in the ecosystem, and then through the local energy balance, then basically it can achieve get more warming effects than the points. And also, because for fish ponds, And mangroves, I think there should be some existing model that can compare the biodiversity of the two, but also, for the fish ponds, they can be critical for the local food security. So still, we need more information to have a fully assessment of the conversion of fish ponds to mangroves as a nature-based climate solutions. So it's not bad to start from abundant fish ponds and convert them to mangroves. And there are already some efforts in some countries. For example, this is a study in the Philippines. And these two figures on the left shows the natural mangroves. And the two figures on the right shows restored mangroves from an abundant fish ponds. So the fish pond was totally destroyed during a tsunami like 40 years ago. And after that, the government began to restore the site to a mangrove. And now, we can see the mangroves there are really healthy. And basically, I can't tell this is a restored site. And the authors, they compare the above ground biomass and the soil carbon content between the natural mangroves and the restoration site. And I'm quite surprised that, basically there's no significant difference between them. So the restored site can also act as a significant carbon store. So here are the take-home messages from these studies. So for the mangrove site we studied, it's a moderate emitter of methane, which is mainly because it can receive freshwater discharge during the summertime. But the fish ponds are hotspots of methane. Temperature is one of the most important drivers of methane for both the mangrove and the fish ponds. So, salinity actually shapes the signal pattern of the mangrove methane fluxes, and their effects can be asynchronous. So, which means we need to take account for the lag effects between methane and its drivers. And for plant activities, it dominates short-term variations in methane fluxes through synchronous processes. So the conclusion is quite similar with other freshwater wetlands. And fish pond conversion to mangroves can significantly enhance carbon sequestration and reduce methane emissions. But more work is needed to fully evaluate it as a potential nature-based climate solution. So it's not bad to begin from the abundant fish pond, but still, I checked the literature, but I'm not quite sure like how many abundant fish ponds we have. But I know there are some ongoing programs in Hong Kong that are trying to convert some abundant fish ponds to mangroves. And that's all. Oh, thank you for the attention. And there's are some references that related to the results I mentioned in this talk.